He didn't need to. "I'm not going," she said, her stubborn chin set. "He's my brother. I'm coming with you. You'll slow me down. You're wounded. I can ride. And I know this land. I know where they're holed up. Ghost Canyon. It's the only place they could be. I can get you in. You can't do it alone." Silas looked at her. The fever was still in her eyes, but underneath it was a fire that matched the prairie sun. She was right. He didn't know the land, not like a local, and a stealthy rescue was better than a one-man siege. "You slow me down, I leave you," he said. "I won't," she promised. He nodded just once. He handed her his spare pistol, a heavy Colt. "You know how to use this?" She checked the load with a practiced hand. "I told you, I shot one of them." "Good." He turned Cinder north into the growing dark. "Let's ride." They rode through the night, the vast starry sky their only witness. Ilara, despite her bravado, was flagging. The pain from her wound and her wrists was intense, and she swayed in the saddle, but she never complained. She just bit her lip and kept her eyes fixed on the horizon. Silas watched her. He'd ridden with hard men, killers and thieves, and none of them had half the grit of this slip of a woman. The part of him that he thought was long dead, the part that had cared, stirred uncomfortably. "We rest here," he said, pulling up in the shelter of a small arroyo. It was 2 hours before dawn. "Can't risk them seeing our dust." He helped her down. Her legs buckled, and he caught her. She was light as a bird. He sat her down with her back against the dry rock wall and gave her the last of his jerky. "You're a bounty hunter," she said, chewing slowly. "What's Malachi worth?" "To me," Silas said, checking his rifle, "everything." She waited. The silence of the plains stretched out. His gang, they burned out a homestead near the Cimarron 4 years back, Silas said, his voice quiet, stripped of all emotion. "Man, his wife, and his son. They took their time. I was a U.S. Marshal then. I was too late." Ilara stopped chewing. "Your family." Silas didn't answer. He just cleaned his gun. The snick-snick of the oiled metal was the only sound. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be," he said, snapping the rifle back together. "Sorrow's a waste." I turned in my badge. A badge means you gotta bring 'em in alive. A bounty poster doesn't have that problem. He looked at her. "He's not taking anyone else's family. Get some sleep. We move at dawn." Ilara watched him as he took the first watch, a dark silhouette against the stars. He wasn't a good man. He was something else, something harder, and maybe, just maybe, something better. They reached the cliffs of Ghost Canyon by midday. It was a natural fortress, a deep scar in the earth with high, sheer walls. Ilara pointed to a fissure barely visible high up the cliff face. "There. It's a goat path. We used to play there as kids. It'll take us to the canyon rim. We can look down, see their camp." It was a treacherous climb. They left the horses hidden in a grove of cottonwoods. The path was narrow, the rock crumbling. Silas, fit as he was, found it hard. Ilara, wounded and exhausted, was a marvel. She moved like a shadow, her bare hands gripping the rock, her jaw set. They reached the rim and lay flat, peering over the edge. The canyon floor was 100 feet below. Malachi's camp was there, 5 men, plus Malachi himself. They were sitting around a low fire drinking, and in the corner, tied to a wagon wheel, was a small boy. "Danny!" Elara let out a choked sound. Silas put a hand on her arm. "Not now. We wait for dark." "They'll hurt him," she breathed, her whole body trembling. "They won't," Silas said. "He's collateral." "He's no good to 'em dead. We wait." The wait was the hardest part. Every minute was an agony. Elara watched her brother, her eyes never leaving him. Silas watched the camp, memorizing routines. The single guard was lazy. He drank with the others. As the last light faded and the canyon filled with shadows, Silas laid out the plan. "The path splits down there. It'll take us to the canyon floor behind that storage shed. They're drunk. The guard's drunk. We go in, cut the boy loose, and get back to the path. No shooting unless we have to." "And if we have to?" Elara asked, her voice tight. "Aim for the heart," Silas said. "Don't waste the shot." They moved down the path. It was darker now, and twice as dangerous. A loose rock skittered out from under Silas's boot. It clattered down into the darkness. Below, the camp went silent. "What was that?" a voice slurred. "Coyote, probably," another voice said. "Shut up. I'm trying to think." Silas and Elara froze, pressed against the rock face for a full minute. The talk started up again. They continued, slower this time. They reached the bottom. The shed was 30 yards away. The fire was bright, outlining the men. Malachi had his back to them, telling a loud, drunken story. The guard was walking a post, but his steps were uneven. "Now," Silas whispered. They moved low and fast, from shadow to shadow. They reached the shed. Danny was on the other side of the wagon. They could see him. His head was down, asleep. Silas moved first. He crept around the wagon, his knife in his hand. Elara covered him, her pistol raised, her hand shaking, but her aim steady. Silas reached the boy. He put a hand over Danny's mouth. The boy's eyes flew open, wide with terror. "Danny," Elara hissed, coming up behind Silas. "It's me. It's Elara. We're getting you out." Danny's terror turned to stunned relief. Silas sliced the ropes. He scooped the boy up. "Elara, you lead. Back to the path. Go." They started to move. They were halfway to the cliff wall when the guard stumbled around the wagon. He stopped, squinting into the dark. "Hey, who's there?" Elara didn't hesitate. She fired. The sound was a cannon shot in the small canyon. The guard crumpled. "Go! Go!" Silas yelled, pushing her toward the cliff. The camp exploded. Men grabbed rifles, shouting, firing wildly into the dark. A bullet sparked off the rock by Elara's head. Silas fired back, his own rifle barking. A man screamed and fell. "Get up the path. I'll hold them." "No! I'm not leaving you," Elara screamed, trying to pull Danny up the cliff. "I'm not giving you a choice," Silas roared. He shoved her and Danny at the path. "I'll be right behind you." "Go!" He turned and faced the remaining 4 men who were advancing, using the rocks for cover. He was one man, in the open. "Silas!" Elara cried from the path. "Go! Live!" he shouted, firing again. He saw her disappear into the blackness of the fissure. He allowed himself a small, grim smile. He'd kept half his promise. "Malachi!" he yelled, ducking behind the wagon. "Who the hell are you?" Malachi's voice came from the darkness. "You remember the Cimarron? A farmstead? A woman and a boy? The shooting stopped. There was a long, heavy silence. The marshal? Malachi's voice was soft, cold. I thought you was dead. Not yet, Silas said. He broke from cover, firing toward the voice. He ran for the cliff path, bullets chewing the dirt at his heels. One slammed into his side, a hot, vicious punch that stole his breath and knocked him to his knees. He gasped, clutching the wound. Blood welled, hot and sticky, over his fingers. Got you, Marshal! Malachi laughed, stepping out from behind a rock, his pistol aimed. Silas was on one knee. He raised his own pistol, but his arm was heavy. Everything was heavy. This is for my wife, Silas said. This is for nothing, Malachi sneered, and pulled the trigger. Click! The hammer fell on an empty chamber. Malachi's eyes went wide. He'd been firing wildly, lost count. Silas smiled, a bloody, terrible grimace. He had counted. He always counted. He pulled the trigger. The shot echoed, and Malachi fell, a dark heap on the canyon floor. The other men, seeing their leader down, lost their nerve and scattered, melting back into the shadows. Silas pushed himself to his feet, his side on fire. He stumbled to the cliff path and began to climb. Every step was an agony. He pulled himself up, hand over hand, his blood leaving a dark trail on the rock. He reached the rim and collapsed. The world was spinning, black and red. He heard a voice. Silas! Oh, God, Silas! It was Alara. She and Danny were there. She'd been waiting for him. Told you I'd be right behind you, he panted before the blackness finally took him. When he woke, the sun was in his eyes. He was on a horse, not Cinder. He was on the sorrel, and Alara was behind him, her arm wrapped tight around his waist, holding him in the saddle. His side was bound tightly. You're an idiot, she said, her voice thick. Where's... Danny's on your horse. He's fine. He's a tough kid. Malachi? Dead, I checked. So are the other two you hit. The rest are gone. They rode for a day. Silas drifted in and out of consciousness. He dreamed of fire, but this time Alara's face was there, pulling him from the smoke. He woke up in a bed, a real bed. The room was simple, made of rough-hewn wood, but it was clean. The sheets smelled like lye soap and sunshine. Alara was sitting in a chair by the bed, her arm in a sling, her wrists bandaged. She looked tired, but the fire was still in her eyes. Pa's alive, she said before he could ask. The bullet went clean through his shoulder. He'll be fine. Danny? In the barn showing Cinder off like he's his own. You're at Cross Timbers. You're safe. He was. The word felt strange. He looked at his side. The bandage was clean. You saved us, Alara said. All of us. I was just the bounty. There's a pouch on the table, she said, nodding. The bounty for Malachi. It's yours. We don't have much else. Silas looked. His gun belt was there, and next to it, a heavy leather pouch. The $600. He lay there for a week. Alara and her father, a gruff old man with kind eyes, tended his wound. Danny followed him around like a puppy. It was quiet. He'd forgotten what quiet felt like. On the 8th day, he stood. His side ached, but it was healing. He walked out onto the porch. The ranch was small, nestled in a dip in the plains, protected. And there, bubbling from a small cave, was the spring. Clear, cold water. Alara was there, throwing feed to the chickens. She looked up. shading her eyes. "You're leaving," she said. It wasn't a question. "I am," he said. He wasn't a rancher. He was a man of the trail. The vast, empty horizon was calling him. "Where will you go?" "Sumner, I guess." "Then, wherever the trail leads." She nodded, her eyes sad, but understanding. She was like him. She was a survivor. He walked to Cinder, who was already saddled. Danny had done it. The boy was crying, trying not to. "You be good, kid," Silas said, ruffling his hair. He mounted up. He looked down at Elara. The sun caught her hair, turning it to gold. She was strong. She would be fine. The ranch would be fine. "Silas," she said, "the one I saw when I was hanging, crouching by me, was that you?" Silas paused. He remembered the mirage, the heat shimmer of the man who wasn't there. He'd been tracking Malachi, so he'd been ahead of them, but what if? He'd seen the buzzards. He'd found her. But who had been there before? He shook his head. "No, there was no one there but you and me. Must have been the fever." She nodded, though she didn't look convinced. Silas turned Cinder. He didn't look back. He rode north, toward the open plains. He rode for an hour before he reached into his saddlebag. The heavy pouch of gold was still there. He'd forgotten it on the table. He stopped, turning, looking back. The ranch was just a speck. He should go back, give it to them. They needed it. He sat there for a long time, the wind pulling at his hat. Then he smiled, a raw, unused expression. He turned his horse north again and rode on. He was a bounty hunter. He had a job to do. But for the first time in 10 years, he wasn't riding for vengeance. He was just riding. Back at the ranch, Elara swept the porch. She moved the chair where Silas had sat, and her broom knocked over his gun belt. Underneath it, where it had been hidden, was the pouch of gold. She picked it up. She looked out at the vast, empty plains at the horizon where he had disappeared. A single tear traced a path through the dust on her cheek. She wasn't crying from sorrow. She was crying because, for the first time, the vastness didn't feel like despair. It felt like possibility. She was free.